Hi, and welcome back to my Guitar Pro tutorials. My name is Ryan. If you were with me last time, I showed you how to recreate this Brain Stew by Green Day file, which had some power chords, some muted strums, and some strum pattern and a tuning thing to it. So we're going to continue with this idea of creating strum patterns, but today I'm going to show you how to recreate Little Lion Man by Mumford and Sons. So first thing you might notice right off the bat is we've got three different staffs we're looking at. We're looking at the slash notation, we're looking at the standard notation, and then if you look closely at the tablature, it's not simply an A minor chord the whole time. We have some bass strumming happening here. If you're not familiar with how that works on guitar, usually it's where you take a chord like A minor, C, or G, and you hit the low note first, and then you strum the rest of the chord, or some combination of those two things. So that's what we're going to recreate while still maintaining this A minor chord in the top. All right, so let's create a new file. I'm going to go acoustic guitar, steel string. This won't affect how things look. It will just affect how things sound. And we're going to be in standard tuning, so I'll leave that alone. And we do want the slash notation to match our file here, so I'll go ahead and click on the slash notation symbol. So first thing, let's take care of some of these easy things. Get rid of brain stew here. Let's go ahead and set our tempo. That's super easy. It's already the same, so 120. We're in standard tuning. And the song is Little Lion Man by Mumford and Sons. And we're really just working on the first measure of the song. So if you remember from a couple other tutorials, there's a few ways I could create this A minor chord. Of course, the simplest way to do this is to hit the shortcut key A, and it brings up our chord diagram. So let's do it this way first. Now, what'll happen is if I click OK on this, it's going to auto-populate it everywhere, including the tab. And that's not a problem. You could do it this way. And what we can do from here is you'll notice that we only need that low note of the A minor chord in the tab and the notation. So I could just simply delete the ones I don't want. So I'm just going to highlight the notes one at a time, delete, down on the arrow pad, delete, delete, delete. And now we're still left with the A minor chord and the A minor diagram. We still want that. All right. So this will be our bass note in our bass drum pattern. And then you'll notice that we have another A minor chord over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to get that A minor chord back. And there we go. Now you see the mistake I just made, and we talked about this a couple of tutorials ago. I did it again in the same measure, and that created this second A minor. I could fix my mistake pretty easily here. I could click on the chord and click delete, and that will get rid of that. But if I don't want that mistake to happen in the first place, what I also could have done is before I started deleting these notes, so let's go back a step here. There we go. So that's going to give me my A minor chord back. Before I started deleting all those notes, I know the next chord I need is a full A minor chord. So I could have just hit C, created the chord without the label at the top, and then go back to deleting things. And there we go. Now we've got our first two things. But I do need to make them eighth notes. So I'm going to highlight them both, minus on the keyboard, and now we've got eighth notes. Now, at this point, you know enough things that you could start to do things in any order you want that makes sense to you. What I like to do is I like to get everything written down in the tab and chord form before I start adding these downs and ups and things like that to it. So the next step is going to be getting this chord. Now, if you're only looking at the tablature, you might be tempted to skip to this, but you'll notice in the standard notation and the slash notation, we do have a chord here, but it's connected by something called a tie. If you're not familiar with a tie, what a tie does is it adds the duration of two rhythms together. So in this case, we have an eighth note plus another eighth note. It's getting added together. And the way that tablature will sometimes deal with that is make it invisible because you're not going to hit the strings again. All right. And there's a couple of things you might have run into if you've seen this before. Sometimes they put parentheses around those notes to denote the fact that, hey, it's there, but you're not actually going to strum it again. So how do we create this? It's actually really easy. We're going to just treat it like we're going to hit the chord again. So quick shortcut C, All right, and there's our chord. And I'm going to pay a special attention to the rhythm first. We've got a 16th note, so I need to hit the minus key to get a 16th note. And then to create the tie, it's really simple. Two ways you could do it, and one is definitely the better way, is to go ahead and click Shift L, and that will connect the entire chord. I'm gonna go ahead and expand this so you can see that easier. You can see that here's my original chord, here's my new one, and they're entirely connected. I'm gonna go back a step and show you the slow way, just so you can see that you could also do it this way. Again, I'll expand it to make this easier. So there's my chord. I want to connect them. If I click on a single note in the chord and click L by itself, it will connect just that note in the chord. So you can see I could go through each note individually, and you might want to do it this way depending on the song or the strum pattern, whatever. All right, so now there is no difference in the end. They both look the same. We're going to leave that alone. And now we just need a partial part of this chord, and it's also a 16th note. So here's how I'm going to do it. I could just recreate it in the tab, but I'm going to show you the way I like to do it. I like to hit C again, and you'll notice that I get another tie by default because it's also copying the tie. So how do I get rid of it? I just go over to the right side chord here, and I'm going to hit Shift L, and then I'm going to delete the notes I don't need. So now I have the three notes that I want. I'm on a 16th note, check. All right, next one, I've got another full A minor chord, so kind of the same process. I'll show you another thing you could do, kind of the opposite of what I just did. I'm gonna hit C, and then I'm gonna add back the notes that are missing. So I could also do it this way, right? And again, it's still an A minor chord. I don't have the label up here, and that's what I want. All right, and then we're basically going to do everything that we just did again. I believe these are the exact same. Let's see. We've got a tie. Yeah, so these are the exact same. So you could start over and do everything we just did, which would be the slow way to do it. But instead, I'm going to highlight everything and then hit C on the keyboard. And boom, now we've got everything we want. Now, something is funny here. We didn't do a rhythm quite correct. Let's see what happened. Eighth note, 2 16th notes, eighth note. I think that's where we went wrong. Eighth note, 2 16th notes, eighth note. This needs to be an eighth note, I think. Yes, it does. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit Control Z. We're going to fix that by clicking the plus key. Now we've got the right rhythm. Okay, so 2 eighth notes, 2 16th notes, and an eighth note. 2 eighth notes, 2 16th notes, and an eighth note. All right, now we're going to highlight everything and hit C. And there we go. So you could call it almost done right here because we've got the chord, we've got the rhythm, we've got the tablature representing the way that you would actually strum the chord, but we don't have those down and up strums quite yet. And you'll see a couple of funny things happening here. One is some of these are in parentheses, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the big thing that we just did that made this a little harder is I went ahead and copied something that repeated. So I'm going to undo that. We're going to get rid of this again. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift D for the downstroke symbol. And you can see that's what we want here. We want down, 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 up, down. So down, down, and then even though there's nothing in the tab, down, up, down. And you'll notice I ended up with this downstroke in parentheses, and I kind of talked about that earlier. There's nothing in the tablature because we have a tie here. So if you're actually playing the guitar, what's happening here is you're strumming down without hitting the strings. Now we can highlight everything, hit C for copy, and it looks a lot better. We got through it fairly quickly. Last little detail is we need a repeat sign. Real quick shortcut for that is the right bracket. And click OK. And I believe we're done. Let's take a listen. All right, good luck.